everyone, and thank you for joining us in the first of a 5-part series which focuses on the harmful effects of pornography in our society. My name is Nyron Rawlingson, and I'll be your host for this special Family Life Commission program. If you were tuned in from 8 p.m., you would have seen episode 1 of the docudrama, which sets the stage for our discussions over the next couple of weeks, in which we'll be dealing with such topics as pornography in schools, pornography and its effects on the individual, and pornography and its effects on marriage and family life. This week, however, we'll be dealing with the influence of the media as it relates to the dissemination of pornographic material. We will end with a live call-in program on pornography addiction on Friday the 15th of March, our 5th and final week. So please have your questions ready for that hour-and-a-half session. Joining me in studio this evening is Monsignor Robert Llanos. Many of you may know him as the priest for Sunday Mass at Living Water Community, but Monsignor is also a practicing psychologist and the chairman of the Family Life Commission, which of course is the commission behind this initiative. Thanks very much, Monsignor. And we'll be right back with Consider This. So welcome back. Before we focus specifically on pornography in the media, let's briefly take a moment to look at the media in general. There's been a significant amount of research and debate surrounding the general impact of today's varying forms of media and society. So, Monsignor, what are your views on this issue?
Well, media must impact on everybody's life. It must have an impact because it deals with the human senses, sight, taste, sound, hearing. And how we react, our internal perception of what the reality is around us comes from what our senses are fed, So once you talk about the media having an impact on the world, it must have a major impact because it, as I said, it treats with the senses of the human being. So everything we see, everything we hear, and so on, is what causes our inner reflections and thoughts about reality. So I suppose, it can impact in very positive ways and it can impact in very negative ways, depending on the circumstances, depending on what's being relayed, the messages being relayed, and so on. And of course, it's not as clear, it's not always as obvious as it seems, because you have these subliminal messages, you have the overt messages, you have those things that treat with what's on the surface, and those things that treat with memories from the past, that trigger memories or reactions to memories. You have those things that are the viewer or listener may be coming in contact with something new and creative, which starts a whole new world of thinking and a whole new way of looking at reality. So, media is the means through which our society, I think more and more today than ever before, perceives reality. It's no longer just the particular family relationship or village relationship or one's dependency on maybe reading a long book or something. Now the media in the world today it's almost like a person next to you. The media is coming at you from all directions, and one has to treat with the sounds, the sights, the whatever that are part of our lives now.
But if I may just interject there, concerning some of these debates that we have been talking about, a lot of talk has gone around talking about, the media has a very big impact on especially susceptible minds, people who aren't ready to process what they are actually seeing or hearing, What is some of your views concerning that?
I would think that will be considerably true, because the less time you spend in relationship with someone and the more time you spend in relationship with some form of media, then that form of media becomes something that has much great influence on your world and your thinking than ever before. You know, long ago, as I said, you know, relationships did that work. Nowadays, we are spending more and more time, many more hours, engaging the media in one form or another. The consequence of which is one's emotional life, therefore, is, I think anyway, one's emotional life is considerably compromised, stunted in many ways, because one is now relating with a virtual reality rather than the real, you know what I mean? And because, of course, one has far easier access to technology and a form of media nowadays than, say, one might have access to a person. So, you know, you see, even in a family household, somebody's upstairs and somebody's downstairs and they use their cell phone to talk. Long ago, you didn't have that, you know, you had to find the person, engage them person to person. So here you have this medium, this thing getting in the way of, well, that's technology, but getting in the way of what would ordinarily have been in the past, a discussion, a dialogue, or the consequence of which, of course, is now, if I'm looking at something on the television, I can't dialogue with the television, you know, so I have to hear what is being said to me or shown to me. I have to receive it, but I can only receive it. I can't dialogue with it in terms of coming to some new understanding or different understanding, or convince what is on the media coming at me to, say, change its perspective or think differently. Yes, what I'm saying? So I become trained as a person. I am more and more trained as a recipient of something rather than as one who can engage in dialogue with that thing or that circumstance or that person or that lesson or that teaching or whatever it may be, whatever is being shown to me. I think that's the best way to put it.
But what about some studies, I understand, especially in, let's say, communication theory, they raise a lot of, they may have problems with that kind of thinking about the audience as a kind of passive recipient. We bring our experiences, we bring our ideas. So while the dialogue may not be as per se with a real person, what do you think about that? We bring our own experiences to the table. So is the media, are we just passive?
Well, obviously it's not the same for everybody. Various different people can look at the same thing and engage that same, what they're seeing or hearing, completely differently, depending on their particular family of origin, their background, their level of education, or their simple life experiences, you know. So you can look at something on television and be completely a recipient, someone who's just taking in all of this information, and you don't have many other perspectives to sort of bring to bear on what you're seeing, to discern, to analyze, to reflect on, because you may know very little about this particular thing. Or it may, for whatever various reasons, not engage your emotions or your spirituality in any particular way. Again, depending on who you are. But you have those persons, however, who ascribe to what they see on the or hear in the media absolute truth. In other words, because it's there, it must be true. It must be real. And because it's there, then that's reality, and not necessarily any other thing that I may not be seeing in this particular documentary or this particular conversation or whatever I'm seeing or hearing. You see, so it really depends on the person. But because there is no, I imagine, because there is no way of controlling who's there to receive what the media is giving, then there will be some people who can look at it and bring their own ideas and thoughts. And there are those who, as I say, will take it as reality, whatever it is.
All right, then. So let's turn specifically to the issue of pornography in the media. Coming back from the break, we would have seen that the pastoral response from the Vatican some years ago, which describes pornography as a violation of a human person. As both priests and practicing psychologists, tell us how concerned should we be as a society about the impact of pornography on real-world behavior?
To answer your question, I would like to actually quote directly from a document that I have here with me, which I think is a marvelous document. It's a document called The Social Costs of Pornography. It's written by two professors from the University of Pennsylvania, and they have as signatories on this document as many as 56 professors, lawyers, psychiatrists, doctors, all kinds of persons, who have signed on to this document as a substantial document on this subject of pornography. So I will be referring to this, not just now, but throughout our session. And it says here, those who claim pornography is harmless entertainment, benign sexual expression, or a marital aid have clearly never sat in a therapist's office with individuals, couples, or families who are reeling from the devastating effects of this material. Research and data suggests that the habitual use of pornography, and especially of internet pornography, can have a range of damaging effects on human beings of all ages and of both sexes, affecting their happiness, their productivity, their relationships with one another, and their functioning in society. Drawing on data obtained by a variety of economic, clinical, and other tools, the pages ahead, in this document, detail the manifold human costs of pornography.
So clearly it's not just a stress reliever or just entertainment.
No, it's not just a stress reliever.
It's really something we should be concerned
Well, like anything else dealing with the senses, it has the potential for addiction. And so that's why they use the word here, chronic use. Very few people who move towards looking at pornography, even in the first instance, is just to see what it is like. Very few people will walk away from it easily, because it's like drinking a good drink, or tasting if you have a sweet tooth and you eat a nice chocolate, for the first time. It's not easy to say, well, okay, it's nice, but I'm not interested. You're going to want to explore the sense that you get. You want to explore as a human being. Any human being will want, especially in the area of one's sexuality, you want to explore the sensations you feel. You want to explore the ideas that come with it. You want to explore just the feelings associated with it initially. The problem with it is because, again, it's something that deals with the senses, and in this case, more than one sense in the human person. It very easily lends to addiction, and that's the problem. The more you look at it, it's the more you are likely to become addicted to it, and if you really chronic use of pornography means it become habitual. Once you reach that stage, it has a life of its own.
So do you liken pornography then to like the media's heroin? Would you say it? Something like that? The media's heroin?
Well, I don't want to cast any labels on the media and say the media's heroin. No. Well, yes. In terms of it's addictive. Yes, it's addictive. So suppose you can say heroin or cocaine or one of those things, but it's addictive.
Okay. So Monsignor, you know that there are levels of acceptability in watching pornography. So let me give you an example. Many adults believe that watching adult male and adult female having consensual sex is, let's say, a lesser evil than watching child pornography and then homosexual porn, and you have bestiality, you have even snuff videos and SMN videos, whatever you call them. But there's a lot of talk about that almost hierarchy of watching pornography. What do you have to say in terms of...
So they can't classify all pornography as the same.
Exactly.
It depends on what it is.
So there are some that are even worse than others.
Yes. So. Well, that is true, as we will see a little later on. But let us just take the straight heterosexual pornography, people. There's a study done in 2007, for instance, and it says for women, frequent pornography use in a potential mate who is male resulted in significantly lower intentions to pursue him for a relationship. In other words, once this was done at a college level, college students and university student level, and they discovered that when women discovered that their male partner was into pornography, they were less likely to choose them for a permanent relationship. And that was, the percentage was very high. Then we have some other, again, in another set of information here from a psychiatrist, and again, research done in 2007. And he says, perhaps the most paradoxical fallout of the pursuit of sexual gratification via internet pornography is that it can render the chronic user incapable of the very sexual satisfaction that he or she is seeking. As one doctor specializing in neuropsychiatry related in the 1990s, men whom he treated had become so dependent upon pornographic images to become sexually aroused that they were no longer attracted enough to their wives to have intercourse with them. Moreover, research suggests that exposure to pornography decreases sexual satisfaction with one's partner for both men and women. So that's when they look at it together. In addition, chronic pornography use is associated with depression and unhappiness. Pornographers promise healthy pleasure and relief from sexual tension, but what they often deliver is an addiction, tolerance, and an eventual decrease in pleasure. Paradoxically, the male patients I have worked with often craved pornography but didn't like it. Another professor of philosophy this time explains the relationship between pornography use and unhappiness. He says, sex portrayed in the porno image is an affair of attractive people with every technical accomplishment. Muscular build and sexy women and that sort of stuff. Most people, he puts it here, most people are not attractive and with only second-class equipment. These are his words. Once they're led by their porn addiction to see sex in the instrumentalized way that pornography encourages, they begin to lose confidence in their ability to enjoy sex in any way other than through fantasy. People who lose confidence in their ability to attract soon become unattractive. And then the fear of desire arises, and from that fear, the fear of love. So what he's essentially saying is here, when you look at pornography or internet, wherever, you then have a fantasized version of the reality. And of course, we all know our minds can create some wonderful fantasies which our bodies often can't meet, okay? And that's the reality. And it promises things, the notion is it promises pleasure and love and excitement, which really and truly is not the consequence of sex, much to a lot of people's misunderstanding. It's not the consequence of sex, but the consequence of the relationship and the emotional maturity of the partners in sexual intercourse. That is what brings the deepest levels of pleasure, deepest levels of contentment, of peace, of happiness, not the actual sex itself, but the persons who are engaging in this sexual encounter, this intimacy. You see, and so the whole thing is skewed wrongly. And once you look at pornography, you're getting the impression that it is all about your particular sexual behavior that results in this happiness and pleasure and whatever else. But quite frankly, as these psychiatrists and psychologists tell us, it's all a lie, you know. It promises something it cannot, in fact, provide in the long term and at any significant level. Of course, the first time you do it, you'll have a lot of pleasure, but by the time the second time and third time, as you just mentioned a little while ago, what you did the first time is not going to be enough. Okay.
So in fact, it's really like a heroin in that sense.
Yeah.
It gives you the first shot of excitement and joy, but it dissipates.
Yeah, and then you need more and more of it to accomplish the same sensation, the same satisfaction, the same pleasure. And then you don't only need more of it, then you need a different type of it. As you said, you move into other forms of pornography, not just the heterosexual type. You want to see bestiality, you want to see child pornography, you want to see pedophile, you want to see all kinds of things. Then you move on to, as you said a moment ago, you move on to the violence in the sexual act. You want to see mutilation of people, you want to see death, and so it goes on because, like as you say, as we were saying, it's an addiction. You need more and more, not only more and more, but a more horrific type of the same porn in order to satisfy the addiction, you know. So it's really a dangerous road to to take.
Moving on from that, we have a new phenomenon. I mean, reality TV has basically taken up most of television today, and what people will watch in very large numbers. So we find a lot of people want to be a star. So they create their own amateur videos of them having sex. And many people see this as a private, intimate, probably, well, I mean, given what you just said there, you know, you may not agree to this, but a lot of people say that it's a private matter. I mean, it helps my intimacy. It helps drawing me closer to my spouse. So having a private video shouldn't really harm anyone, should it?
Well, you see, again, the statement you just made is indicative of what we're talking about. You said it helps my relationship. Well, the truth is it may help your sexual experience. That does not mean it helps your relationship, which is what I was just saying. You know, you may vary something or try something new and so on. But the moment the focus moves from the person of your partner to the object of your partner, then you already are exposing your relationship to deterioration and self-destruction. You already begin that process. The moment you shift your focus from the person of your partner to the object of the sexual act, then from the time you separate the two, in other words, you immediately begin to destroy your relationship.
And this seems to be, for me, a big point in that document. I think that is the big secret that is not really out there. People are consuming this form of media and expect that it will definitely aid their relationships and aid the quality of their sexual experience. But as you said, more or less, these psychologists and psychiatrists are saying it's the biggest lie out there.
Oh, it's a big lie. As I said, is the quality of the intensity and quality of your act is dependent on the persons, not on the act itself. Yeah, it depends on the persons and what they bring to the particular act. You know, as we said earlier on, an immature person. So if you have two partners, for instance, in a marriage, or as a matter of fact, it's in any kind of relationship. If you have two partners, depending on the emotional maturity of one, and let us say the lack of maturity on the part of the other, you can have problems in your intimacy, in your intimate relationship. Again, for the same reason, because what one is bringing to the experience, one party, is bringing the experience, is very much different to what the other party is bringing to the experience. Now, if the both parties to this sexual intimacy are striving to love each other, then the very difference between the two in the maturity is an occasion for them to grow in their relationship as they help each other understand and mature in their particular unique relationship with each other. All of that is lost if you focus purely on the sexual act. All of that is lost, because then one party either feels superior to the other person, and the other one feels they are failing the other party, if you lack maturity, for instance, and the more mature partner may complain about your attitude, your presence to them in the sexual act, okay? And the other party may feel, more often than not it's the man, I have to say, may feel, well, incompetent in the sexual act, may feel somehow or the other inadequate to the woman, and all of these things stir up, again, if you're not working towards love and maturity in your love, these stir up all sorts of ideas that lead you down these roads. And then you think, you know, maybe I need to look at some pornography and get some new ideas to satisfy her, or in her case, satisfy him. But then, as I said, once you move from there, then the relationship is compromised, because you're bringing in a foreign object, if you wish, into this union which has no place there, because these are two particular people working through, engaging in a relationship that's supposed to produce a sexual encounter that celebrates that relationship, not somebody else's relationship. You understand what I'm saying? So if you look at this, objective sexual act taking place in the media, and you try to import that into your relationship or your home or your house or your intimacy, you're looking for trouble. You're looking for trouble.
Okay. We'll be right back.
Oscar. Mata. Bushman's just got to put it. Now Fernandinho. And Chataria helps it back to him.
Welcome back. For those of you just joining us, this is a special Family Life Commission presentation dealing with the harmful effects of pornography. So before the break, we were discussing whether the media does in fact have influence on real-world behavior. But let's turn our attention for a moment to availability and accessibility. So we just saw a clip from episode 1 where Michael was casually flipping through the adult channels on cable TV. Mm-hmm. But in this episode also we saw him using a cell phone in the dissemination of pornographic material. So my question is there any realistic way we can really manage this information that is this accessible?
It will be very hard to, obviously. I mean, this industry is so prolific now worldwide that it's mind-blowing when you think of it. I mean, I can quote from some statistics here. This is a 2008 study on internet pornography statistics. It says that every second there are approximately 28,258 internet users viewing pornography every second. Every day, approximately 116,000 online searches for child pornography only. 116,000 searches. In 2005, 13,585 hardcore pornographic video DVD titles were released in the United States. One study of undergraduate and graduate students ages 18 to 26 around the country found that 69% of men and 10% of women in that sample viewed pornography more than once a month. Nor is there room for doubt, I'm quoting here again from this document, nor is there room for doubt that this consumption has parallels in the popular culture more broadly. The number of sex scenes in US television, for example, reportedly doubled between 1998 and 2005. Mainstream video games that you can buy, feature pornographic themes. For instance, there's one called Leisure Suit Larry, who features full-on nudity. And they got a M rating in order to secure the sale of this game in Walmart stores. So when you have that kind of thing going, I mean, the statistics are, I would just like to quote a few more just to give an idea of how prevalent this thing is. In countries from China all the way to Brazil, and I'll list very quickly list one or two here. China, South Korea, Japan, US, Australia, United Kingdom, Italy, Philippines, Germany, Russia, Netherlands, Brazil. This is these countries listed here. And the total annual revenue from pornographic material is $97.6 billion US. So when you have an industry that is generating $97.06 billion US dollars, it's going to be very hard to stop something like that. And then you see the kind of finance that is available to promote it and get it into every market possible. Let's look at some child pornography in statistics. The average age of first internet exposure to pornography is 11 years old. That's the average age. The youngest known is 8 years old. 8 to 16-year-olds have viewed porn online. That's 90% of viewed porn online. 90%, You heard what I said? 90% is ages 8 to 16 years old.
That's mind-boggling.
Yeah, at this present time.
But those figures were taken in what year?
This is 2007.
Okay.
Yeah. So one can only imagine it's somewhat worse now.
I mean, 2007, we were still with Nokia Me Too phones,
Yeah,
so now
yeah.
we have smartphones.
Yeah, now you can get all of this right in your hand, in your lap,
Right.
in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
U.S. adults who regularly visit internet pornography websites, 40 million.
Wow.
Okay? So the figures I mean, I think just the income alone, women using pornography, women keeping their cyber activities secret. 70% of women, married women, keep their cyber activities secret. You know, I mean, so in other words, you don't know how many of them are.
So don't think they're don't take their denials at face value then.
Yeah, yes. Women struggling with a pornography addiction, 17%. The figures, I mean, there are all sorts of figures that we can look at, but it's obvious that it's very prevalent in the world. And as I gave the list of countries, you can see that no one is exempt, so to speak. Pornography has been identified as, this is coming from Effects of Pornography in Relationships by Linda L. Simmons, who's a doctor in psychiatry. She says pornography has been identified as a significant problem in American families. In 2003, a survey was done, and as many, this is 2003, 47% of all the families questioned identified pornography as a problem in their homes. This is 2003, and 47% of households in the United States. Pornography addiction is leading more and more couples into therapy for help and is also becoming a significant factor in many divorces. So the figures themselves speak volumes, I think.
So this brings me on to the next question. Because children are so technically savvy, and are limits and boundaries realistic in this day and age, or is constant dialogue between parents more important?
Mm-hmm. Well, as in many other important things in life, the solution of a problem of this nature is always going to the source. You see, if you don't have a market for the product, then it will hopefully by nature how the market works decline. In other words, there will be less and less pornography available if there are less and less users. The problem now is that there's increasing use. So I imagine if you want to stop the proliferation of pornography, and as we said earlier a little while ago, it'll be very hard to stop it from the point of view of the producers of the pornography, because of the kind of money it generates and so on worldwide. So you have to stop the consumer. You know, you have to get the consumer rather to stop using the product, and then the product will, by the nature of that, die. You know. So the answer to your question then will be directly, how do we get the consumer to change their behavior? I think even in terms of adults, it'll be a longer process and a more difficult process. So the real area I think one needs to address now is the child, the young person growing up, the young adult, the teenager even, the young adult even, and that is what will really and truly enable an individual who's going to come in contact with the pornography anyway. We have established that it's everywhere. You can't get around it. So whether it's through friends or anything, they're going to encounter this. What will, in such a person's mind or heart, move them to say, I am not interested in this? Or, yes, I feel turned on by what I see, but that's not for me. You know, I want to experience the freedom to be the man or woman that I want to be without this influence in my life. Well, it's going to be actually how well that child was raised in the family home and in the family context. So the persons who are directly involved in reducing consumerism of pornography, I think, will be the parents of a home, an inner home, and a family in general. So that if that home is a place where one is allowed to mature naturally and freely and in a positive way, including, obviously, one's sexuality and one's sexual identity, then one becomes comfortable with oneself. One feels free to explore, to understand, to ask questions, to share one's feelings and emotions and so on. Then you, as a person, in terms of your sexual identity, you become confident. You become comfortable with yourself, in other words. You become comfortable with relating to people, other people, in terms of your own sexual identity and who you are, a comfortable being. Then you're not going to be tempted, or you'll be hardly tempted, to find in pornography any kind of satisfaction for yourself. Because you will sense to yourself, well, that doesn't do anything for me, if that's what I'm saying. Because I am happy and comfortable with who I am already. And I'm happy and comfortable relating to people in terms of my sexual identity and their own. I am comfortable with that. I find in that, I find greater pleasure. I find I am much more alive when I exercise that role, as opposed to going to a pornographic something. Now, so the person, the place where then I think you dry up the consumerism is in helping the young person to mature in a healthy way through relationships.
So on that note, we will take a break and we'll be right back with Consider This. Regarding the Children's Bill, which was passed in Parliament in June of last year, it's worth mentioning that this proliferation of amateur pornographic videos of minors, which are taped using cell phones, as we saw in episode 1, is in fact a crime. I also want to take a moment to mention that the bill defines child as, and I quote, a person under the age of 18 years. So, Monsignor Roberta, I want us to talk a bit first about what you've personally experienced in this country regarding this issue of child pornography. And do you feel that this bill will assist lawmakers and enforcers in any significant way?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I'll answer the second part first. I think the bill is very important because whereas we may have less control over what comes in from outside, internationally, certainly we can do a great deal in preventing production rather of child pornography here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think once the law is enforced properly, it will go a long way in sort of bringing to the consciousness of the people that this is not acceptable, that we don't accept this as a people, our children being used in this way. So I think, yes, I think the law is an important law. I think it gives the authorities some kind of substantial weapon with which to tackle child pornography at its source in the sense of where it's produced. To go back now to the first part, my experience is in Trinidad and Tobago that there is more of children, young children, accessing pornography than there is of the production of child pornography in Trinidad. Now that, except for obviously the home videos, the things made with your cell phone and so on, What we are finding that in schools particularly, it's becoming more and more rampant, where groups of students are coming together and they're creating their own child pornography because they're all under 18 years old, for distribution in the school, or for blackmail, all sorts of things. It's amazing, what we can get up to.
So in a way, with the scope of this bill, it doesn't really address that. So how do you think, what we should be concerned with in terms of our legislation? Should legislation really run to that extent in terms of monitoring how young people deal with pornography? Or do you think that in its scope, at least for child pornography, this legislation is actually adequate?
Well, I think it's a good start. I think it certainly is a good start. We have to start somewhere, and I think it's a good start to sort of put a clamp on things and at least officially, clamp down on its production. Because, we had in our history already, we've had child pornography being produced in the Emperor Valley Zoo, with animals. We have had instances where and you know that we have been linked, Trinidadians have been linked in foreign countries to the pedophile ring and the child pornography ring internationally. So we have been part of that as a nation. We have been affected by that, but it's still small, and confined in confined situations, and it's not as rampant as it may be in other places. So I think this law will certainly help to stop it in its tracks. We hope. The problem with Trinidad is always not the existence of the law, but the implementation of the law, enforcing of the law. So once it's enforced, and I think there is a real resolve in for instance, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, there's a real resolve in the government to help the child and to save children and to save our children from this kind of exploitation. I think that's a genuine resolve. So one hopes it will be enforced. But in terms of the private thing now, where you create your own little videos and so on, it could be experimentation, but it begins there and then it turns into something, friends being invited over to somebody's house. Parents need to be sure that they know there are actually parties now that I understand, that they actually throw their little parties for friends, but they select the friends that are invited. And those friends know that they are coming, in fact, to engage in a home production of child pornography of some kind. And parents don't have a clue that it's going on, until somehow or the other it gets out there in the international traffic, and then they suddenly realize, oh my God, that's my child, or that's our neighborhood, or whatever it is. But we know for a fact that there are young people, teenagers in schools, throwing parties and having events in their parents' home, in their family homes, in order to produce child pornography. So it's actually not only children in the pornography film, but it's also children producing the pornography film.
I mean, this kind of information that you're providing here can give a certain sense of paranoia for parents, Not only do we have to worry about adults who have no relation to the family or, people who may have ulterior motives, they have to worry about their peers, the peers of their children. So rather than paranoia, what steps do you think a parent should take, other than what you said before, to really address this?
Well, I think parents have to communicate with their children. You have to establish a relationship with your child from the onset, from the time they are very, very young, that it's okay to communicate with your parent, either both parents or either one of the parents, your fears, your anxieties about anything that obviously is going to come into your life that presents itself as strange or offensive or troubling or whatever. Once you establish a relationship with your child where that child feels comfortable talking about their world and their life, you're not going to you're going to have this problem a lot less, because a child is going to come home. I know personally, as a family therapist, several examples of children who actually come home and say, this such and such thing has happened in my class today. Telling the mother, I know one particular case, a young man, he held it in for about 5 days, afraid to raise it with his parents. And then the mother asked him, she realized his behavior that's another thing. Know your children so well that you can discern slight changes in their moods and in their behaviors and find out what's wrong. Mm-hmm. But just to say that this young man, this was a young man, this was not a girl. A young man came home and said, in primary school, Mommy, this is what has happened in school. This is what they asked me to do, and this is what I did, so and so. And therefore, the parent was able to go into the school and change the situation. Interestingly enough, not without problems. That the teacher was actually sort of defending and sort of dismissing what actually happened. But because of the insistence of the parent, the principal was made aware of the situation. It was dealt with, and now it's fine, because what they did was they brought in a child psychologist into the class, now not just to speak to this child and the particular offenders, but to speak to the whole class. So the whole class now of young men are aware. I think they were about 9 or 10 years old, I can't remember, but that kind of age. The whole class now is aware of this thing existing and how not to accommodate it among themselves. You understand what I'm saying? Without anybody being embarrassed or made to feel ashamed or threatened. The whole class now realizes we don't want to be a part of this. Okay. So you see how positively it was handled.
Yes.
Well, that's a way of dealing with something like that. But you have to have the relationship with your child where they trust you, that they can come with their fears or whatever, and you're not going to panic or react. You're not going to go crazy. You're not going to threaten them. You're going to say, okay, we can sit down, let's talk about this and work it out.
Okay.
That's it.
That's what's in there. So more of consider this when we get back. So welcome back. Monsignor Robert, so we were returning to some of the figures we mentioned earlier concerning Google. Very troubling news report, from Express in 2011. So when we see information like this, we might be inclined to feel as if we're in a losing battle. But how can we as church use the very same media to address and counteract this phenomenon?
Well, I suppose the answer to that question is do exactly what we're doing right here now. Producing something that deals with the issue, that sort of addresses the many questions and ideas surrounding the use of pornography, exposing it to the general population, that there is a whole other point of view, so to speak, than the one they have when they're looking at pornography. There's a whole world out there that sees this differently. And they, for obvious reasons, need to access that information. So I think the church should be doing, like as I say, what we're doing here now, producing these sessions, these shows for television and for the use of the population out there, because videos will be made available of these shows, made available to the public. That's essentially, I mean, this is one thing we can do. I think there are many other forms of reaching people. Like, for instance, sending out these little texts on your on users and their cells and so on. Every day, a little code that can remind them, about some aspect of their body, their life, their world, and give them some information on pornography and its effects and so on, little clips. I think like everything else in our world today, you gotta bring it forward to the people. You gotta let them see it in front of them, because make the issue more obvious. I think most people sort of kind of keep it underground, sort of keep it under the table. It's quiet. It's your private business, your personal business, all the time while this thing is fermenting in society. So as church, we have to come forward and remind people. We have to speak out now. We have to be a prophetic voice that says, listen, this is not acceptable. This is harmful to you. This is destroying our world. It's destroying our families. It's destroying our relationships. It's affecting our human development. It's affecting healthy human development, I should say. People need to know that. I don't think we know that in general. We're not aware of it. We may be suspicious of it, of the pornography and our use of it, but we just don't know really the consequences of using it the way we are using it now.
So much of what you said there is, in a way, looking forward, a way of using these strategies of today to make these things, to address these things. But to date, so we're looking a little back now, to date, what has been some of the challenges in addressing this, at least using media or perhaps not using media? What has been to date, what has the church really accomplished in this area?
Well, I am not aware, but certainly locally, I don't think very much has been done, if anything at all. Like, I don't think anything has been done to address this particular issue directly in terms of the use of the media and so on. And just in terms of addressing the subject, yes, maybe in small pockets and little quiet circles, but as I said, I think a lot of the world is, as we mentioned earlier on, sees the issue of pornography as a relatively harmless thing, one, and where it's not seen as harmless, it's seen as private or secretive in some way. So we haven't done anything much really, I think, locally. I know internationally, there are organizations that we know that work towards NGOs and church organizations that work assiduously towards producing things, documentaries and shows and teachings and so on, to alert people to the dangers of this pornography now and how we need to find an alternate course. But locally, no, we haven't really done very much.
So that's looking back. We look forward. What about the now? What can you say to our viewing audience to really to begin this process of addressing this problem?
Well, I would like to say to them, stand up, be alert now. We can no longer treat pornography as if it's just something that does not affect us directly. We can no longer treat pornography as if it's, well, of all the evils we have in the world and all of the issues, major issues we have, this is somewhere down the line. This is the least of our concerns. In fact, it is proving to be, through research and so on, proving to be quite a harmful pastime in our world now. As you know, as when we'll talk about in one of the later shows, it's direct relationship with violence. I mean, pornography, we know that. That's not nobody's guessing that now. That's a given now. It's researched, it's accepted, it's understood by all the professionals that there is a direct relationship between the use of pornography, chronic use of pornography, and violence in the world. And violence in families, I mean, and between spouses and so on. So there you have it. I would say to people, stop denying it. We have to take action now. Okay.
Yes. So, Monsignor, given that last emphatic statement, what else would you like to add for the viewing audience before we leave?
It's not good to panic either. It's not good for us to all go crazy now trying to find out what's going on and so on. It's just a question really of being vigilant, being careful, and taking strict note of what's happening with our children and our world around us, and taking positive action in that regard. Certainly in the case of pornography, we have to do something. I suppose that's what I want to say. We cannot just leave things as they are. We have to act.
Okay, thanks very much, Monsignor. So we thank you for viewing, ladies and gentlemen, and we invite you to send your questions via Facebook, and we'll forward them to our panelists over the 4-week period. You can tune in our live program on Friday the 15th of March right here on TCN from 8 p.m. in order to hear their responses. And remember, you'll have an opportunity to call in as well. Also, for those of you who missed the first episode of Consider This, the docudrama, you can view it on our Facebook page after this broadcast. And tune in next week, Friday, for our 8 p.m. broadcast for episode 2. I want to thank Monsignor Robert Llanos. Thank you for coming and sharing your views with us. And we would like to thank all our viewers for joining with us this evening. So see you next week, same time, same place. Good night.